Decorate my journal with me as I talk about why I didn't choose Hobonichi again for my 2026 planner, why I chose Stalogy, and what layouts I'm thinking of doing for this journal system. Firstly, look at my pretty little planner. It's the yellow Stalogy 365 Editor's Edition, and I chose the A6 size because that is just the size that works best for me. And this journal has 368 pages, which I'm hoping will be a good amount of pages for me. I originally did want to get the half-year version, which I believe has around half the number of pages, I'm assuming, but I'm not too sure actually, because the stationery stores that I had gone to in the city, which were Yoseka Stationery as well as Loaf-On Paper, didn't have the half edition by the time I had gone in and looked. So I ended up getting the 365 version, and so far I'm happy with this decision for a number of reasons. First of all, the Stalogy has a plasticky cover, which is really nice. And similar to why I got the Han last year, I wanted a notebook that would have more resistance to the wear and tear because I tend to throw my notebooks and take them with me everywhere. And so the plastic cover was a perfect feature of this notebook for me. I will be decorating it with stickers, which does lessen the durability a little bit, but this will end up going in my leather folio, which should protect it enough. I also like the fact that it's plastic so that it won't get dirty in the same way that the Hobonichi or Midori paper covers do. That's always just been a little bit of a gripe of mine because I tend to be a little bit clumsy when it comes to actually writing and using my supplies. I somehow get ink almost everywhere, so it's a little frustrating, and that's why I need a clean cover so that at the very least on the outside my notebook is somewhat pristine. The pages on the inside of the Stalogy are undated, which was something that I really needed, and it has a very light grid that is light enough that is easy on the eyes and you can kind of go out of it and use it however you would like, but also dark enough that it's not impossible to see. There are some journals that I've seen where the grid is so light that I'm genuinely squinting, but I do have some layout ideas that I will be using these grids for as guidelines, which is very nice to have. I'm not so perfectionistic with my journals that I will pull out a ruler and draw lines, so that is why I tend to prefer grid notebooks, because then I have lines that I can decently follow just by freehanding and it'll look relatively straight. So let's get into why I didn't choose Hobonichi for my 2026 planner. As many of the people in the Hobonichi stationery journal family, what do you call this? Culture? Hobby, there we go, hobby, are aware, the 2025 Tomoe River paper quality for the Hobonichis was really bad. The paper was super inconsistent, and as someone who got a Hobonichi A6, the Han, I did actually see some of that. It was perfectly fine up until I want to say around August, September, and then I started noticing that even though I was using the same ink, the same pens, there was getting to be some very rough shadowing. Some of the inks did end up bleeding through, but they were bleeding through at the points where I lifted my pen so the ink was pooling, etc. And that was a little more forgivable, but the shadowing was getting pretty bad that as someone who doesn't use black inks or really dark inks, it was difficult to write on the other side of the page because the shadowing was so distracting. And so as an American customer of Hobonichi, admittedly 2025 was my first time getting the Hobonichi, and so I was not sold. The notebook itself is about a $40 investment, and that was an investment that I couldn't really accept happening again. Because of those ink issues, I entirely stopped using my journal for almost all of August and September, and I only just came back to using my Hobonichi because now I'm using it to test the layouts that I have planned for my Stalogy. And even now I'm not too impressed. I'm using the Scent of Eucalyptus ink that is a Yoseka Stationery exclusive, and the shadowing is pretty bad. It's honestly actually still bleeding through at some points in October, But because I'm not working on pretty spreads or using this as memory keeping, but more as testing and tracking how I use these new layouts, I'm okay with this. So I do want to use the rest of this notebook, but it was pretty heartbreaking to see because I was using this journal pretty regularly up until that point, and this journal was what got me into fountain pens, and it's also unfortunately what drove me away from it because I stopped being able to use my fountain pens, and I primarily use my fountain pens now. And so while I hope that for every Hobonichi enjoyer and fanatic that for 2026 the quality is better and that you get notebooks that are of the original Tomoe River paper and of acceptable quality, this was just not something that I could afford to take a risk on, especially with it being $40+ for a notebook. So that was one of the things I was mainly looking for. I was looking for a notebook that was cheaper and ideally still in the A6 size because I now have a leather portfolio that I wanted to use, and it felt stupid to not be looking for an A6 size notebook because I enjoy using that and I think that works best for me. And I was debating a lot between whether I wanted a notebook that was undated or similar to the Hobonichi if I wanted it to be dated. Even outside of the August-September dates where I stopped using my journal because of the issues with the paper, I still have a good enough amount of blank pages at parts of the year. I have a couple of blank pages in January, February, even when I was definitely in the thick of I am ready to change my life. I also have some in May and June when I was traveling a bit more. And I have definitely gone back and backfilled a lot of pages with some arts or just random notes and stickers, but I definitely have too many empty spreads for me to want a daily planner. That was part of the reason why I again did not want to get a Hobonichi outside of the quality control issues. I just wasn't using a journal regularly enough, and I think a small part of it had to do also with the Hobonichi page layout. I don't really like the fact that the date is so largely in the corner. I like writing my own dates, and I think a lot of that contention comes from the fact that I don't journal every day. I go through ebbs and flows of when I like journaling, how I like to use my journal, and so I think I was really leaning towards an undated journal. Despite wanting an undated journal, I wanted a journal that had enough pages for me to be able to journal every day if I wanted to. I am someone that has too many goals, projects, and plans that I need a lot of structure to my days, and so I needed a place where I could write to-do lists every single day if I wanted to. And that is how I landed on the Stalogy 365, because it has that many pages and it's still an A6 notebook, and it is somewhat fountain pen or fountain ink paper friendly. So I think this might be where I get a lot of questions, because Stalogy is also known for their quite hit or miss fountain pen friendly paper. My main justification was, if this journal does not end up being fountain pen paper friendly, which again a lot of people have said it's hit or miss, pretty much 50-50 whether or not you'll get a notebook that works with your fountain pens. This notebook was not even $20. It was 18 something with tax. And so I figured it's half the cost of a Hobonichi. Worst comes to worst, I can't use my pens with it. I can use it for just a notepad at my desk. I will end up using it no matter what. So that wasn't the worst part. Would I have done that with the Hobonichi? No. I actually have a Hobonichi from 2024 that I got last year, or this year, that I got at the same time as I ordered my Han for this year, so that I could do test spreads in there, test inks in there as well. And I don't actually use it for anything else other than testing the paper. I'm still trying to brainstorm something to use it for, and I have not succeeded very well. I tried using it as a place for me to write reviews and reflections on specific media that I've consumed, but it hasn't really happened, and so I'm still trying to figure out why or how I'm going to use it. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly it is I don't like about the Hobonichi. But that leads us into the last part of this video, into what layouts I'm thinking of doing for my upcoming journal, my Stalogy, and how I hope it'll lead me to be more conscious of my goals, going for my goals while preventing mental fatigue, exhaustion, and burnout. And the biggest thing that has prevented me from buying dated journals, despite liking the simplicity of not having to make my own journal layouts every single day, week, or month, is that a lot of journals don't actually have the monthly, weekly, and daily layouts interspersed. And what I mean by that is when you come across these planners, journals, the ones that are dated, the way the layout typically is, you start with the year overview, and then they have the monthly pages, and then they have the daily pages. This has never worked for me. I need constant reminders of what I'm looking at, and it can't be so physically removed from the daily pages. This might sound really silly because in the end I am flipping back to the monthly pages, the weekly pages, even if they're interspersed, but something about the proximity where not having it separated by year, month, week, date, daily makes it so much harder for me to go in between my daily pages and my monthly pages and figure out those plans. So what I have planned for my Stalogy for next year is interspersing those pages so that it's more separated by month. So I'll have January, February, March, April, etc. And then each month will have its own monthly page, or a couple of monthly pages. I actually am sort of thinking about what I want to do. And then it'll have week 1 or whatever the dates are, and then the daily pages for that, and then week 2, daily pages week 3, etc. It's I don't know if this makes a lot of sense. I'll have some visuals on screen of what my templates are starting to look like. I'm currently still testing stuff out, but I took a lot of inspiration from a journal that I used to use a lot that was very helpful for my goal setting, and it's the Pomo Press Planner. And what this has is a horizontal 2-page weekly layout, and I really like it because it has all the space on the left side just for organizing all of your to-do lists or events, and so it's split into day, and then I can write my events and then split it in half and write my to-do lists. And then on the right side I have all of this free space to sort of brain dump or plan different projects, and I need that. I need so much space to brain dump. And you might be thinking, well, what if you just put that in a different planner? What if you just had a separate notebook for scrap? And I also tried that for a little bit when I used the Pomo Press Planner as my main planner for the time being, and then a separate notebook for journaling. But I need a place that is both to-do lists, brain dump, and journaling, and so I'm trying to incorporate that into one notebook, because if I separate those systems, I start to then use only one, because it becomes a little too overwhelming for me to either carry 3 notebooks, be aware of 3 notebooks, and just remember and hold all that space in my head, when the main point of this notebook is to relieve that space in my head and create a space where I can dump everything and put everything out there. So that's the idea behind my layout. And I was kind of shocked that I had not been able to find any planners for this. And so there is a planner that I came the closest to finding something that I really enjoyed. Where are my notes? Let's see. Yes, the Faded Chronicle planner. I've actually changed my layouts quite a bit, but they're heavily inspired by this layout, and I really do appreciate and enjoy their layouts. You can hear me clicking because I'm looking through their layouts right now. And I was actually really tempted to get this planner, but they don't have an A6 size, and that was their smallest planner that has the horizontal layout for weeks is the B6 planner, and the B6 is quite a bit larger than the A6 despite the naming, and it just wasn't something that would fit into my life right now. Maybe in the future though, maybe in the future. I was also looking for a journal that had quarters. Big shout out to Yoseka Stationery for holding Planner Marsh, which was their event where they showcased and hosted over 100 different types of planners, and it was absolutely amazing to go there and see and get inspiration on what I wanted my planner for 2026 to look like and what I wanted my layouts to be, because that helped me so much. And I actually got a lot of ideas, not only from the Faded Chronicle planner, but there was another planner that I can't currently think of the name of, but it had a square in the bottom right side of their daily pages. And I was asking my friend, because we went together, and I was like, I wonder what people use for this square. And she said that her partner uses an Eisenhower matrix, which is a matrix that determines whether things are urgent and important or neither. Basically, the top left corner is urgent and important, and then the bottom right corner is not urgent or important, nor important. And so you organize your tasks in that way, and that's something that I also have implemented into my tasks, because I have in my head 5 million tasks at any time, and I just need a way to quickly organize and figure out what needs to be done right now and what can I just empty out of my brain so that I can forget about it because I've written it down. And so I'm actually really excited because I have a couple of things that I would like to implement. Again, I've talked about the fact that I'm going to be actually interspersing my layouts, and a lot of this comes with flexibility and why I wanted a planner that wasn't dated, so that if there's a week that I don't want to journal at all, I can just have the weekly layout and then move on to the weekly layout. I don't need to put a daily in between. But it also allows me to use this as a journal, where if I do have a week where I am both doing a lot of to-do list journaling as well as memory keeping journaling, I can always put the memory keeping on top of my to-do list and just put like a cute sticky note on top, some stickers, and do the memory keeping that way, so that I'm not carrying multiple journals at once. Because to me, the to-do lists aren't things that I have to keep, but I won't be covering my weekly layouts, so that I still have that snippet and screenshot actually of what my life was like in this moment and time and what I was going through. So for me that works, because I'm pretty bad at journaling daily, whether it is for to-do list dumping or just for memory keeping, and so I think a combination will work really well for myself. Something that I hinted at but didn't get to talk to because I got distracted was implementing a quarter system. I started using the 12-week year earlier last year, and I found that the 12-week mindset actually really helped me a lot. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I'm very prone to burnout. I'm very prone to overworking myself and not giving myself enough rest. And the 12-week time frame is very easy for my brain to manage compared to doing just a month, because a month feels way too short, or on the other end, doing a whole year's of goal setting. And that's just way too large, and I can't even fathom that amount of time. So similar to how a lot of journals have these like fun extra pages at the back, instead of doing that at the very beginning, I'm going to have a New Year's resolution page, and I'm after that going to put a quarterly where I have 5 main goal subsections, and they are health, content, money, relationships, and personal. Personal for me means rest, whatever that means for you. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, and I can get into them more in the new year when I talk about my goal setting. And so the quarterly page will just be a page where I write how these goals are advancing, or if these goals are actually evolving or changing in some way, because of course I'm not going to be the same person I was in January of 2026 as I am in September. 6 months can be a lot of change for one reason or another, and so it gives myself that flexibility to have that. Another thing that I'm implementing is that in my monthly section, I am not only doing a monthly sort of events page and like what's happening, I'm also going to have a page that puts my quarterly goals into sections, and I break down actionable steps that I plan to take that month, so that once again I'm breaking down these quarters into smaller goals. And something I'm not sure about is that I want to make a Gantt tracker, not for projects for the month, but for these goals and what I've done in terms of one specific actionable thing for each goal, and write a reflection for it every week. That I'm not too sure I'll do because I'm notoriously bad at tracking habits, but I'm also going to be implementing this tracker into my weekly pages as well as my daily pages, because something that I saw someone do that I thought would be very helpful is that every single day that I journal, I have to rewrite all of my goals. Just as a reminder of, hey, this is what you're working towards. Keep that in mind as you start your day and plan your day. Because I just tend to get very lost in the sauce. I get so caught up in the details of the leaves that I forget about the forest that I'm growing around me, and that's something that I need constant reminders for. Again, I'm not too sure how it'll work when I'm in that sort of ebb and flow state, specifically the ebb that I go through when it comes to journaling and using these systems, and I'm hoping that maybe this will help motivate me to journal every day, even if all I do is write those 5 goals. And I'm also including a morning affirmation, writing one main goal for the day that I need to accomplish or work on, and then one gratitude at the end of the day. At the very least, those are the things I have to do. And so that's part of one of my goals, to make more personal time for myself. That means rest time and space for myself, because I'm so guilty of not giving myself that time and space, and then I end up getting sick because I'm like, oh my god, wow, why am I sick? No, you've been stressed for the past 3 weeks, overworking yourself, and you haven't been getting enough sleep. Shocking, I know. So I'm very excited for these layouts that I'm working on. I'll have, again, hopefully shown some pictures of what it looks like, and I would love to hear your thoughts on what journal you're using for 2026, if you're doing any layouts. I know a lot of people do fully freehand, and I completely respect that. That's pretty much how I journaled for most of this year and the year before. Free thoughts, notes, whatever, but now I want some more structure to my journaling since I've gotten better at incorporating that habit into my life, making it easier for me to look back and see what was happening in some sense. And so I'm also trying to create a fuller system as well in terms of journal systems, and that is something I'm currently brainstorming about. And I was recently talking about commonplace books and how people have so many different layouts for those, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to approach it. Eventually I do want to take longer notes, very heavily inspired by the Coffee Monsters Co. and how Helen has her commonplace book, and it's a genuine encyclopedia, Wikipedia of what she is currently learning on, because I want to return to the practice of reading more psychological psychology papers and following up on journals, because that is what I originally studied in and still have a lot of passion for. But because I'm not in school anymore, I don't keep up with those things, and I try my best to do that, but I don't make the time for it because I forget, and that is something that I want to incorporate back into my life. There are also just other things that I feel like get lost so much in my day, and especially things with things like doom scrolling. I feel like there's so much information and things that I could be learning from Reels, Shorts, TikTok, etc. But because I watch it, I'm like, oh, that's really cool, and then I continue scrolling, I lose that information because I'm mindlessly absorbing the information, and now it's gone out. So I would like to have a commonplace journal for even just short snippets of information to break that cycle and actually be recalling that information, because recall is the best way to retain information. That is proven. Breaking these mindless cycles, that's the goal with journaling for me. And again, I'm on another tangent, I suppose, a little bit of a ramble, but thank you so much for joining me, and let me know what your journaling system looks like, if you have one at all. No judgment here. And I'm always just so curious, and I love observing, seeing, learning about different people's journal systems and what they do to do memory keeping, organize their life. I'm very curious to see how mine turns out, so if you are too, hang along for the ride. That's not the phrase, but I never introduced myself, but I guess I could say bye. This was Parky out.